And welcome to the Blueshirts Banter Rangers pod. I'm the host, the most, Aaron Cass. You may have heard me on That's My Sports, but I'm feeling blue with my man right here, CPNY Sports. What's going on, man?
What up, man? What up, man? I'm excited to get this up off the ground. I know we've been wanting to do this for a couple weeks now. Thank goodness we're here. We got a couple games under our belt that we'll be talking about today. But really excited to be talking Rangers hockey, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting 3 games. I will definitely say that. It's definitely a different culture, even though I hate using that word because every sports team uses it, but I mean, let's just get right into it right here. Hot start in Buffalo. Oh my God, Lafreniere with a shorthand goal to start it off. Kreider with 2 goals. I mean, they were looking sharp, and the physicality on this team is a lot different than what I saw in the David Quinn era, or even in the can't even think of the last coach we just had. I mean, I know AV
Gerard Gallant.
and Gerard Gallant. How can I forget the Chris Jury guy? Well, what are your thoughts on the Buffalo game to start off the
I
season?
mean, I that was one of the most beautifully executed games that you could ever start your head coaching tenure as a New York Rangers head coach. To be honest with you, it just looked like everything that I've seen out of this team in all facets. Everything down to like the actual skate speed and the game speed and the aggression on attack. It just seemed like, you know, um Laviolette is just the word culture really doesn't even do it justice. Like, it just seems like a complete 180 so far in terms of how this team has looked, so far. I know we're gonna get into that measly game against the Jackets, but, that was a little bit of an outlier. But, yeah, I love this start. Obviously, you see, 5 goals on the board. Kreider had 2 of them. Panarin, Trouba, Lafreniere. The puck is getting distributed, and that's what I love the most. Like, there were a couple goals that the Rangers had in this game where they made the extra pass that we wouldn't have seen last year. I know Gerard Gallant was a fan of just shooting the puck when you're in that sort of zone, but making that extra pass, getting your teammates involved, there's also something to be said for that too. And we saw a lot of that in game one. So I loved what I saw.
Yeah, I also liked how the line change was a little different than last year. So last year they had Panarin and Zibanejad together on the line. Now with Pierre Lavalette, who has major experience in the field, I actually like the lines that he's done where he's putting Capo Caco in the first line and Lafreniere on the second, because it looked
Mhm.
like in preseason that Lafreniere was going to be a third line guy. And
Yeah.
if you're a number one overall pick, I've seen it before. And Neil Yakupov, who got drafted by the Edmonton Oilers back then, he was a first pick, and he was trash on the first line. So they had to bring him down to the fourth line. So I thought that was a little crazy, but I do like what they're doing in that sense. And also, the defense is looking a little bit sharper. Over the years, it's been crap. Let's just say that lightly. So whether it was with Hank or with Igor, it's like you can't stop everything. So I loved how the defense is really stepping up in this one. Um, well, unless you got anything else on Buffalo, I guess we could talk about the next one.
Well, I mean, even like you said, like in that first game, they didn't even need Igor to stop everything. Like, they were just stopping the Sabres in their tracks. Everything from the neutral zone and on, the Sabres couldn't even really penetrate their offensive zone and the Rangers' defensive zone. And that was the beautiful thing about it. Like, the Rangers, I didn't even look at the puck possession time, but that must have been, like I said, lopsided as well. We talk about, puck possession time. It's not as equally correlated to NFL, possession time. It doesn't really tell as much of a story, but everything that I like you said, Igor really on in these close games, and we saw it against the Coyotes. When we talk about it, Igor really had to be on top of his game in that game to pull out the win. But in this game, I mean, 24, 25 saves. Obviously, you expect that, but they didn't really get that much pressure on Igor, which is something that the Rangers have to emphasize moving forward.
Yeah, I was trying to look it up. It's not like football where they have the possession minutes, but I did
Yeah.
see that our face-off win percentage is 63.3 over
Hmm.
Buffalo's 36. And Buffalo, they're saying is supposed to be a playoff team this year. So they're 1 point away last year. But the big, also a big thing too. I knew it, but I didn't realize it was this much. 23 block shots.
Yeah,
Dudes
that's
are
wild. That
laying out there, and I
yeah.
haven't seen that since John Tortorella, and that's going to be one of the takeaways I'm going to discuss later on. But that's for later on in the show. But this game coming up that we talked about, Columbus. When I tell, did you realize that we had 20 more shots than them in that
I
game?
didn't realize that. It
We
didn't
actually
really
had
seem like that
39.
watching it.
We had
Wow,
39 shots to their 19. 19. And we gave up 5 goals. Well, really 4 if you
unbelievable.
don't count the 5th one. But it was crazy that we had Gustafson scored the first goal of the season in the first period, and then we didn't get anything, I think, until the third.
Yep.
But it was just crazy what the Columbus Blue Jackets were doing on Saturday.
Yeah, and then when it got to 4-1, I almost sort of stopped tuning in because the 2 goals that the Rangers had that were called for offside just really pissed me off, and, we were texting back and forth when this game was happening in the first, and I know you said, like, right off the bat, that's gonna haunt the Rangers, like, even after the first one, let alone the second one, and, sure enough, it was a strong start, like you mentioned. Gustafsson gets his first goal, everything's looking great. I'm like, "Wow, they're really continuing this offensive display that they were, showing out in Buffalo. And, one offside gets called. I forgot who was offside, but I think it might have been Laugh. I'm not
Lafreniere
positive
was the
though.
first one because
Yeah.
of the puck. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, I didn't even see it. It was so fast motion that when I think it was a Banjad who would have had that goal. And I was like, oh, dude, it was like right on the line.
Yeah, and it was definitely like you could tell on his face when they zoomed in on him when they called it, when they called the goal off. It was like, you know, it wasn't by much and he knew it and he was just sort of disappointed too. And I just think that set the whole tone. And obviously, the Jackets got going there as well. And it was really a close game. I feel like the Rangers were always in that game. It's just that, they just couldn't put the pieces together. And you mentioned the shot disparity. Like I didn't even realize that watching it, but it makes sense now because like I did get the sense that, until it really was out of reach, that the Rangers are always in this game. But it's just unfortunate to have those 2 offsides called on you. And you've seen the Rangers have this happen to them time and time again where, you think they score a goal. I mean, it happened countless times in the playoffs over the past couple of years. Just every time I've watched the Rangers, it just seems like that is like I can't imagine another team. I don't even know what other team would have more goals called for offsides than the Rangers. It just seems like it's always biting the Rangers in the ass, move like on the replay. So I don't know, man. It was something to definitely forget. Kreider got another goal here. I think he scored in all 3. We're talking about the Coyotes game, and he actually got credit with the last goal. I thought it was Panarin, but Kreider's off to a hot start. We'll talk about that as our takeaway too. But just an absolute game to forget. And I'm not even in tune with the Jackets in terms of how they're projected to be this season. But I don't really think of that team as anything special. Moving forward. But it is what it is.
No, after that scandal of Mike Babcock and whatever's going around there, their best player really is Johnny Gaudreau. They really haven't been good in I think like 5 or 6 years. But I just couldn't believe that Boone Jenner had a freaking hat trick already. I think it was either in the first or in the beginning of the second, but he had it pretty early on. I was just like, yo, you gotta be kidding me. They're captain of all
Unreal.
people. But Columbus, they're one of those teams where you think it's going to be an easy W, and they somehow just come out and just hit you in the face because they were like they're moving offensively. No, even though our shot differentials are way different, they were definitely moving on us. And it looked like Schneider, our defenseman, was just lackadaisy. Wasn't really that good. I'm surprised he's still on the team. That's how bad he was.
Mhm.
But again, we have Jacob Trouba saved the goal in that game. I couldn't believe it. And I actually
That
thought it
was
was a
beautiful.
goal. I thought it was just because if the puck is halfway, I think, or more than half, it's automatically a goal. But what a save, man. You would not have seen Ryan McDonough. You would not have seen Kevin Shattenkirk. You never would have seen those guys do that. So that's why he's a captain for a reason.
Yeah, I'm starting to see Big Chuba guy over here as my co-host. I love it. I know he was catching some flack there with his miscues on offense and his shots and the obvious ones that he's missed, especially in the crucial times in the playoffs. But man, come on, you're right. There's a reason why he's the captain. Big hit stick too. I think he laid a hit that caused some ruckus. I'm not sure if it was last game or not, but I always love he's always has his nose in things, whether it's blocking shots or making that incredible stop. I mean, literally the puck was, I'm pretty sure, almost halfway through, if not a little bit more. I couldn't tell in the replay because there's so many angles that they're going through, but absolutely skin of your teeth. Like to have a defenseman that's going to put everything into it and sort of make that stop to back your goalie up, it's just absolutely something that it's invaluable to a team. Obviously, it didn't end up mattering against this in this game Columbus, but something that we'll talk about in terms of the absolute morale of this team moving forward. And I get it; it's only 3 games into the season, but how does a team bounce back under a new head coach after such a brutal loss like this? And we'll talk about it here in a second. The Rangers did just that.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say before we move on to the next game is because it's back to back to back games in a sense is that I think if Ryan Lindgren was in this game, I think it would have been a little bit different. He's a pretty good defenseman. I think he's second line now. Sometimes he's first, depends on the matchups. But I think if he was in there, we wouldn't have lost 5-3. But yeah, that's just me. But all right, this game I couldn't watch live just because of where I live in Connecticut. They like to block out MSG. It's gone now, so I have to either watch it from them or on this Coyotes network, but I couldn't get it. So, man, I'm not even talking about the ending first, but what a game. And the Coyotes, they roughed up the Devils 4-3.
Yeah.
And the Devils are supposed to be a Stanley Cup team. They got, Timo and all them and Todd Toffoli. But this was a very good game. And I thought it was Panarin too. And even the replay, I didn't realize Trocheck had a little bit of a stick in there. So I was just like, all right.
Yeah. Yep. No, it was definitely a great bounce back game. I think the Coyotes, like we know they haven't been good in recent years. They're a chippy team, man. They're scrappy. And we've seen that not only in this game, but the Devils game that they had. They just, seemed to, they were staying in it the whole game. I give them credit, man. And it's not something that I expected of a Coyotes team. And I guess we can say that for the Jackets too, and we just did say that about the Jackets, but it's good to see more, I guess, equalness spread around the league where these teams are starting to sort of put up more competitive games. And I know it's a long season. I understand that. We got, just around 80 games to go for the rest of the regular season. I get it's early, but we're here to talk about obviously the Rangers and what we've seen out of the new head coach and the philosophies that are starting to be employed. And the Rangers don't back down to anybody, man. That's something that I love watching this team year in and year out. Don't even matter who, regardless of who the coach is, the players just do not back down. They have a tough, gritty team. And obviously, like you said, we saw that. We saw the chippiness and the scrappiness just absolutely erupt after the match was over. So I love seeing on that on my screen. And yeah, it's always tough for me to get games too. I think we should caveat this by saying like we're not going to be able to just talk about every single game and being able to watch it live because we both don't live in network to have MSG at our disposal. But I'm always keeping up, and I was kind of in and out of this game as well, just due to some scheduling conflicts. But I saw, the whole third period, and I was just like, you know what? There's going to be something that happens after that one hit got laid out and things got a little bit chippy toward the end there in the third period. I was like, something is going to erupt after this game. And sure enough, it did. People were piling on each other. I don't think I've seen that in a while. I've never seen an actual pile happen, one on top of the other on top of the other. And you got side fights going on. It was awesome, man. That's prime hockey right there.
The one thing I was nervous about was that Igor was in the middle of that. I think he was part of the first fight, and I was like, oh man,
Mhm.
just get him out of here just because I don't trust Jonathan Quick to be the starter.
Yeah.
Like people were trying to say that he was going to be like Halak of last year with the slow start in the preseason, but this dude's just on a farewell tour because he's from Milford, Connecticut, but on his
Mhm.
bio it says somewhere else in Connecticut. But yeah, he's something. So I was a little nervous about Igor, but love that Zibanejad was on top. I couldn't even tell who it was because his sweater was almost off. But Zibanejad on top
Yep.
of that dude at the end, whew, love it.
Beautiful.
But
It's beautiful.
but let's talk about some takeaways from all 3 games. If there's anything different, you have to say. I just put these ones because it just kind of made sense.
Sure.
I put in exclamation points more physical team just because I don't know if you watched it through the David Quinn era or near the end of Alain Vigneault's era. But this team was not physical. This
Yep.
team was, like I said in the beginning, lackadaisy. We played no defense. Even the Gerard Gallant, the last 2 years, we really didn't play any defense. It was all on Igor's back. So I love how
Mhm.
Jacob Trouba, is getting in there. I love how Keandre Miller's getting better playing defense. Adam Fox, who's now an assistant captain. I'm a little questionable why Trocek's not that, but I love Adam Fox getting in. He gets so disrespected in this league as
Sure.
a top defenseman. But I just love the physicality because it makes me feel like we're in the John Tortorella era, which is good because we were in the playoffs all the time. But I mean, these are the ones that I have on here. Kreider on fire, Trouba the next Girardi. I'll explain that one, and then Peter Laviolette is that coach.
And I know there's a lot of speculation. We were talking about it before in terms of when Laviolette got hired, and you obviously had your Gerard Grant supporters, and he just lost the locker room, man. And it was evident that he was like the Bobby Johnson of hockey, to be honest with you, just switching up everything and everything in terms of the line changes when things weren't going his way, especially down toward the playoff time. And it's just like I don't really know if that's the recipe for success or finding success once the season is underway. So my hope for Laviolette is that obviously he's trying to experiment early here, but that the lines are solidified somewhere toward the middle of the season, and we can expect some consistency. As fans, obviously things are different when you're actually up there close and personal and on the team. But as spectators, we kind of just sit there and wonder why there's always this rotation happening. But no, I agree in terms of the physical point that you made. They're not only more physical team, they look faster. They look
Yes.
faster on the skates, which is something that I noticed blatantly, especially 2 years back. And I hate to go to that brutal series loss against the Tampa Bay Lightning, but you can tell the Rangers were the slower team 100%, and that's what cost them. That's one of my key factors that cost them a trip to the Stanley Cup that year. And to improve on that, I think it's I mean, I don't think it's underrated aspect of hockey. You have to skate fast, you have to be faster on the team to the puck, beat the guys to the puck, beat them to a spot. But it finally seems like the Rangers are starting to prioritize that, and I love it. One thing I'll say is that, like you said, the Rangers really haven't been playing, you know, we haven't shown that defensive capability under the old regime, right? And Gerard Gallant, and they're kind of relying on Igor to be Igor. And obviously, more times than not, he's going to be, but that's not a recipe for success when you're a team with Stanley Cup aspirations. So it's good to see that the Rangers are keeping the other team out of the offensive zone early and often. And it's something to be said for, like you said, that they don't have the time of possession for puck possession, but it would be interesting to see what that looked like over the first 3 games for the Rangers, because I think that they've been doing a good job keeping the offense of the opponent at bay. So that's what I got, man, honestly. And I'm actually curious about this whole Trouba Girardi sort of comparison here. I love it, man. We're coming in with these comparisons already after game 3. It's absolutely beautiful, man.
So I say this because I saw a stat the other day that Jacob Trouba already has 13 block shots, and it's only 3 games into the season. I believe I'm just gonna try to find it. I believe it. I guess I didn't save it. It's like the most in the league or something like that. And we're only 3 games of the season. And now, if anybody remembers, if you're an old head like me who's been watching this team for about 20 years, yeah, that's how crazy it's been. Dan Girardi was that Iron Man. This guy was literally on one skate by the end of his career. I mean, I think he won a Stanley Cup with the Lightning, or he went to one, unfortunately. But that was Dan Girardi. He would lay it out all out there on the ice every single game. He would take shots to the stomach, to the groin, anything he needed to do for the team. And that's what I see in Jacob Trouba right now as the captain. Dan Girardi was assistant captain later on after the Elaine. I guess it was like the second or third year in Elaine Vigneault's tenure when we got rid of him. But that's why I put Jacob Trouba the next Girardi, because he's laying it out. I haven't seen that. The last captain we had was Ryan McDonough. And when I tell you this dude took off days, he took off days. And I mean, yeah, he won 2 rings up in down in Tampa, I should say. I wish I could save the text messages over the years. Me and one of my other friends who's a big Rangers fan, we used to call them the Tampa Bay Rangers because they just took over every Rangers player. It was Ryan Callahan, McDonough, and JT Miller. And with Kreider on fire, do you think that he'll get to that 52 goal again in his first year under Gerard Gallant? Because they got to be honest, I thought JT Miller was a better player than Chris Kreider was, and I'm kind of eating crow.
Yeah, I think it's definitely feasible, man. I think Kreider, I mean, obviously we know that we know how he gets his goals. He loves those little chip shots in there. He stays around the net, make sure he's always there for any sort of rebounds too. But I think it's definitely feasible. I mean, that was, a historic season, for him that he put up. And I think that he can definitely replicate that, especially with the way that this started off right now. But like I said, there's something to be said for not putting too much stock into the first 3 games of the season. I know that we're here in our first Blue Shirts Banter podcast episode, and we have, only a small sample size to work with. But yeah, man. I mean, Kreider, you know, there's not enough things you can say about that guy. One of the more consistent guys in the Rangers, and that's what the Rangers ultimately need. They need consistency. And in terms of consistency, I think my last point in terms of Rangers takeaways is a guy by the name of Artemi Panarin. He looks rejuvenated. He has a nice little fresh haircut too, maybe contributing to that. That we have not spoken about. But I know there's a lot of speculation ending last season with the way that he performed in the playoffs in that Devils series, and a lot of people were pissed off. I mean, it was only him. I won't say that it was only him. I mean, Patrick Kane was a no-show. The Rangers, after game 2, 3, or whatever it was, a lot of them were no-shows, and it kind of hurt. So Artemi Panarin was one of the biggest culprits, though, and I know that people were pissed off with him. Some people were even trying to run him out of town, saying, get rid of the guy, blah 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 blah. I mean, listen, it's all that was very reactionary, and we're seeing why it was reactionary because he's off to a great start and he looks like the bread man that we know. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it wouldn't do Panarin justice to not, give props where props are due, starting the season off strong.
Yeah, the reason I wasn't like that, one of those fans. I was just mad because he had a Rick Nash playoff series.
Mm,
And for anyone who doesn't really know, Rick Nash, when the Rangers traded for him from Columbus, great in the regular season. Like this guy was electric, fast, he was a great winger. But when the playoffs came, he was nowhere to be found. And he had a high contract just like Panarin. I think Panarin's making almost 12 mil, and he's our highest guy. So I could see
mm.
I could see how the fans are kind of like getting a little PTSD from Rick Nash, his contract, and just he didn't really perform, but he had like gun charges or something. I think that was probably looming over him, and I think I don't know. I don't think it was with Gerard Gallant. It might have been the last year of David Quinn, but like he had to go back to like Russia or something like that for some personal issues. So he was just fighting some stuff the last like 3 seasons. And I think under Peter Laviolette, I think he's gonna have 100-point season again,
Yeah.
just because of how Laviolette uses his forwards, whether he was in Carolina or even in Nashville the last time he went to the Stanley Cup. Um, so I think Panarin under this system is going to be extraordinarily well with Pierre
I
Laviolette.
agree, and we can already see that like early on, just in terms of how aggressive the Rangers are. I mean, I can see, career years or maybe up there in career years for multiple guys. And we just talked about Kreider, Panarin's another one. Everybody's going to get like under this sort of style of play, assuming that it stays consistent, and it stays the same, the style of play everybody eats. And that's what makes the Rangers so dangerous. If they continue this sort of play, getting everyone involved, making that extra pass that, that I was telling you about when we were going over the Sabres game, like that is what's going to win you and get you not only into the Stanley Cup, but also winning a cup. My other takeaway, and I guess not even takeaway, but just sort of what I wanted to ask you, right, as my co-host, how do you, assess the newcomers' performances so far? Do you have any opinions on that just yet? Or are you kind of waiting to hold off to see a little bit more of a sample size with the new guys?
Kind of a little bit more of a sample size. I haven't really seen much. The only thing I really saw was Eric Gustafson on defense, who scored a goal in the Columbus series. That was a steal money wise. Like that dude's getting like 800,000, and he's a really good defenseman. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, I think he was with Chicago. I think Pittsburgh, but I could be wrong on that one. I definitely know he was with Chicago. So I think that that's a steal. I'm kind of interested in why Laviolette switches out Jimmy Vesey with Tyler Pitlick. I don't know
Mhm.
if it's just the matchups for certain wingers that he's switching them up. I kind of want to see where that's going to go. Blake Wheeler, he's kind of doing his thing. He's 36, going to be 37.
Yeah.
So it's like you're not going to expect too much out of that. So I kind of just needed a little more sample size, but so far they're contributing. And Nick Bonino is definitely
Mhm.
contributing. He knows the system because he was with Laviolette in Nashville. So I had no problem with him. And I've never been a big fan of Nick Bonino because he was ex Pittsburgh Penguin. But do
No,
you,
definitely, man.
yeah, with what you see so far, I know it's only 3 games, but just a little early prediction. Do you see the Rangers securing a playoff spot in the Metro or even possibly winning the Metro? Because this is a
Oh,
tough division, and Pierre Lavalette has pretty much coached 4 teams in here with Carolina, the Islanders, Flyers, and now us.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know if the Metro is going to happen. I'm actually curious to see how we stack up with the Devils, to be honest with you. That's going to be a really good test for the Rangers. I know, I don't really like to pay attention to what happens over there or neither the Islanders. So I'm not really in tune. Like I'll box score watch and I'll score watch, but um I don't know, man. I don't think they need to win the Metro, to be honest with you. It's not of utmost importance. That's my kind of take on it, but I mean, it's definitely feasible. My expectation, though, is definitely Stanley Cup or bust. I think this team has what it takes. I think they have a good mixture of young and veteran presence, and I think the team build is conducive and very well formed to serve for Peter Laviolette's liking. And we talked about the new additions and their age and the veteran experience that they have to go along with the young guys, Laffy, Kako, Miller. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like a revolving door of these line combinations that Peter Laviolette has to play with now and figure out for this first half of the season. Um, but yeah, I don't think that the Metro, like I said, I don't want to, I don't want to say yes or no to that. That's not really what my concern is. Is get into the playoffs any way necessary and then go from there. We've seen it in previous years. It's possible, but yeah, man. Like I said, I said it on a different podcast and I was talking a little bit Rangers hockey. Shout out my guy Sleevy G. I think he'll be releasing that episode here in next coming weeks or something like that. But definitely check out his podcast. But yeah, I said it on there. I was like, yo, like, listen, the Rangers. I know there's a lot of talk and a lot of hype surrounding the Devils, but at the end of the day, I like our squad and I think that we can go far. And at the end of the day, it really is Stanley Cup or bust for the Rangers. And it has been that way, I feel like, starting last year at least, with the way the 2021 season ended up. So I don't know. What are your expectations? What are your overarching expectations? Obviously, we can sit here and say Stanley Cup or bust, but do you think that's actually feasible?
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the last time I've seen a Rangers team like this, and I texted you this a few weeks ago, this is what like the Chris Drury and will do is he'll get the veterans like this, and you're gonna be like, why? They're like 35, they're 33. He did this because Glenn Sather used to do this. If anyone remembers with the Brandon Shanahans, Yarmir Yagers, the Michael Roosevelts, guys like that, he's trying to emulate Glenn Sather just because of the playoff appearance that we went. The best Rangers teams I've ever seen was when we went to the Stanley Cup and lost to the Kings, and the next year after the Lightning. Because after the Lightning, when we lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7, great game by the way, if you can find it on YouTube,
Mm.
is that was it. We were done. So this group is pretty much I'm gonna put them in that category because they need to win now.
Yep.
The
I agree.
most important guys we have, Zibanejad's 30, Trocek's 30, Chris Kreider's 32, Panarin's 31. So they're getting up there. So they're not gonna,
Yep.
their peak is almost over. So we need to, get a ring now. I kind of want to see one in my lifetime. I'm not gonna wait another 50 years like the fourth
Yeah.
one. So yeah,
Yeah. No, I agree with
that's
you.
fine.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just the way the roster is constructed, like I said, with the ages and everything like that, and people in their primes,
It's the old
it's do or die
ways.
time. And I agree. But I'm excited. Another season is upon us. Before we send it off, and before you send us off, I just want to make sure everyone's checking out the Blue Shirts Banner podcast from here on out. We will be doing live streams moving forward. We'll be doing pre-recorded episodes as well. We'll just see what we sort of like for this setup. Obviously, check that out on both of our YouTubes. Make sure you guys are supporting the podcast, hitting that thumbs up, always important to us. Comment your thoughts and opinions. If you're a Rangers fan, if you're just a hockey fan in general, comment your thoughts and opinions. And make sure you hit that subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner on both of our channels. Subscribe to at That's My Sports right here. We have it up. That's where Aaron and his co-hosts are. They do a lot of great episodes. I think you guys got a live coming up tonight, if I'm not mistaken, if you're doing that still. But also hit up Aaron on X as well. Finally, we got a name change on the @ We got some Wu-Tang vibes in the house. So make sure you go tap it in with him. And then myself here, CP. Follow me on X, Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube as well. All of my handles are at CPNY Sports. So find me everywhere and anywhere under that handle. Obviously, we do a ton of other podcasts. I do a ton of other podcasts, one being the Feeling Blue Pod with Aaron here, none other than himself. But that's all I got here. Aaron, send us off, man.
All right. Yeah. Again, just follow us, subscribe, download if you can. He's humble. He has like 6 podcasts. This dude's on like 6 podcasts with good content. He's on Interstate Metroport. There's another one that's like Sunny Days in Flushing,
Sunny
right? For
Days
the
Media.
media, for the football, the NFL. I obviously Feeling Blue, and then obviously this new one launching up, Blue Shirt Banner. We answer all questions and comments when we do live streams. Check us out with that, and just spread the word. We're just trying to get out there. I know there's a lot of Rangers content, but we're the best ones. All right, we have the most knowledge, but well, that'll do it for episode 1 of the Blue Shirts Banner Rangers Pod. Peace.